All right, fellas. Thanks for sitting down on the round table and having a chat with us. Today's topic, we want to talk about a big drinking problem. Massive. I admit, as the host, I drink, but heck, I do know a limit where I stop. 2, 3 drinks, I am good to go, man. But there's a point where there's no stopping, dude. Like, literally, it's just till you drop, like, literally. Or you just get dragged out of someone's house or bar or club, wherever you may be. I mean, why is that? Is it peer pressure or in the Hmong culture? I mean, I understand you could be at a social setting, or a cultural setting too, where it's, and you get forced to drink. You guys have an opinion on that?
Yeah, most definitely. I want to say thank you for having us here, Shiso. It's a pleasure. You can just call me Tu. Pretty common name in the Hmong community, or Tu. But I definitely see it as a pretty big issue. Or it's definitely up there where it is affecting, both positive and negatives. The positive is, it's a great way to social, great way for people to meet each other. And the negative, of course, is the peer pressure and the expectations almost of, hey, if you're not part of this, then you don't really belong. I myself have been there where I'm like, I will decline a drink at an event, and definitely feel a little I feel like an outlier, and like almost like they see you differently, like, oh, okay, this person don't drink.
Let me say, so for instance, yeah. I go to you and I say, hey, to have this drink, and then you decline my offer, and then I say, you respecting me, man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What's your situation about that? What would you do?
I'm gonna still have to hold my ground. Like, hey, I don't want that. And after a while, they'll kind of get it, but you can still see that. Hey, it's like, okay, like this guy ain't cool. That's pretty much like, okay, this guy isn't that cool. I'm probably not gonna chill with them. Let's go to the next person. Hey, you want a drink? Okay, and yeah. And I think it's almost to that point where, like, a lot of Hmong people can't have fun without drinking. It's almost become...
Have you caught yourself forcing someone to drink?
Oh, yeah. Early on, especially, during high school, because I believe that it's kind of, stemmed from, our friends, and from our friends, like, their parents and relatives. It's almost like I said, like that culture that we just kind of grew up in, of not a whole, and what do our parents or grandparents do, our relatives? They all bring the drinks, and it's great. And it's not even like here in America, but it also stems back to Laos and Thailand. But now here in America, where there's an abundance of alcohol, like, it's, I know some friends who do it every weekend. And, once they hit 40s, 50s, that's when they start kind of noticing health issues. And it's like, you got to really think about now that, it's great that you're living for today, but you also got to think about your health in the future. And, we can get another topic about that, but, just being conscious of your health, and, like, being conscious of how much you consume, and getting others involved in this culture. Like I said, there's definitely, great things about it. I myself do it, but I've become more aware and more conscious about it, and how much I consume and who I give it to,
Have you drank less than you ever had before?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay.
You know.
I mean, being real honest, would you consider yourself a alcoholic?
No.
Okay.
No. I think, definitely, I'm just saying for myself, straight out of high school or even late in my high school career, that's when I started drinking. And it was definitely pretty heavy. And then led into college. And then now after college, it's kind of like, I feel like I've just kind of grown out of that phase in my life. And, I'll have a couple drinks here and there. And, it's always great. But I honestly can just go a whole night without drinking, and I'll still have fun, just hanging out with friends, talking to people.
Yeah, I could hang out with you, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same. Like I said, I do drink. I'm more of a social drinker, but I could go out without drinking at all and still have a great time. Mm-hmm. I never pressure anybody to drink. I can say, hey, look, guys, the beer is there, the alcohol is there. If you want to drink, drink. If you don't, drink. Mm-hmm. It's cool, just how I am. And that's also how, actually, my dad is, too. It's like, mm-hmm. like I said, yeah, we drink, but at the point, like, I take one or two, like, I'm good. I'm good to go. Mm-hmm. I personally have been peer pressure from other individual, and I would obviously heavily decline the offer, and they feel like they offended. My decline have offended them, then so be it. It's just how I am. Mm-hmm. I can't think of any nicer way to decline this drink. That's what I'm trying to say. I can't, unless you could come up with a nicer way to decline this drink. But I honestly say that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take this drink. And they say, well, that's their respect. And I'm like, so be it, dude. That's it. I want to say it right in their face. Mm-hmm. You don't like me, so be it. Like I said, my group of friends that I hang out with, like, we don't drink, but when we do, we're celebrating a success.
Yeah.
You feel me? So my flock of friends that I hang out with, just like, yeah, we drink, but that's once in a long time. But those are the people I drink for. I drink for success. Some of these people, they drinking for the weekend, for a Friday. Mm-hmm. What do you do in your life, dude? Seriously, do you do anything in your life besides just drinking every weekend? What are you celebrating for? You feel me?
And I see where you're coming from that, but at the same time, you gotta also like put your perspective into the other people's shoes, where most of them are, just working. Most of them don't have college degrees, and you gotta like see it from that, where it's like, what do you do outside of just work, come home, I don't know, play games or whatever. What are you trying to do on the weekends? Hey, let's just drink. That's really it. Some people like to go bowling. Some people like to just go out to, recreational areas. But in the end, it involves some sort of, drinking. And yeah, it could be every weekend. So
I avoid those kind of crowds, and if you're gonna catch me, then you're gonna have to catch me at a celebration. Then I'll have a toast and a drink with you, mm-hmm. and my kind of activity, I'm binging. When I mean binging, I'm binging a bench, like a dumbbell. Or I'm talking, that's working out, guys. That's what I like to do. Staying in shape and working out. Something I'm very disciplined, and I'm like in my late 30s, man. I'm like, dude, I have a six pack too, man, in my late 30s, because I like to work out and stay fit. For a guy my age, and I was in my late 20s like you guys. I was even more fit than I was, but I'm now back into it and back on my grind and working out again. So for the drinking culture in the Hmong, it's every weekend. It's a huge drinking, and we've seen marriage fall apart for it. We've seen mental health and gout and so forth from drinking it. I mean, like I said, if you do drink responsibly. What do you have to say over here?
Yeah, so my name is Mikey. Thank you, Shiso, for having me here. There's a lot of, I want to say, topics or sections when it comes to Hmong culture, when it comes to drinking and peer pressuring. I'm going to go back a little bit to what I was talking about earlier, and then just kind of dissect it from there, and we can work back up to the peer pressure. And I want to start with the Hmong culture. Hmong
The worst.
Yeah, I want to start back with the Hmong culture in general, because I think that's a good place to start when it comes to drinking, because we are exposed to that behavior, that recreational activity so early when we're young, when we're kids, right? We're 5 years old, at least for me. I'm 5 years old. My dad's taking me to a funeral and says, "Hey, you need to learn and you need to watch what they're doing. You need to understand." Takes me to Hoopli event, Oning event. "Hey, you need to watch. You need to learn." What are we watching? We don't really understand what they're saying, but we see them drinking at the table, and then we just know that we have to learn what that is. So, not saying that we're not forced to drink, right? Some, and I know families who they, like dads, they don't let their son drink, but they'll put them at the table to sit. Maybe not at 5, but when they're 12, 14, say, "Hey, or they'll drag you in." So, granted, it is somewhat of a pressure to drink, but because of that too, and it could be, we could put the blame on our parents, but again, we can't really too, because there's a culture clash, right? You have, when they were in Laos and Thailand or whatever, they did that when they were 12, 14. So to them, that was probably normal. But coming into my American culture, trying to get assimilated, acclimated to what it is here, it may not. There has to be some change, and we can't really put the blame. At least I don't think we can put the blame on our parents and say that just because. Well, mom, dad, you gotta know better. Granted, there are some people who say, well, my parents never did that to me. My parents didn't make me drink, but everyone teach their own family, right? So that being already exposed to that sort of is what I think gets a lot of Hmong men to start drinking. Like Tu was saying earlier, in high school. I started in high school. I was drinking heavy in high school. Damn, okay, I know some friends of mine who started drinking in middle school, and then you could say it's because of the culture or not, but because I think being exposed to that has some sort of an influence. And then now tying it back to the recreational use of it, I think part of it is not really understanding the culture and the importance or the reason why we drink. A lot of it is, we watch and we learn and we practice. You're disrespecting me if you're not taking this drink. We see the OGs doing it, but then it's like, well, there's a certain level of culture to that. There's a certain reasoning to that where, granted, some OGs are doing it for, fun, and some OGs are doing it to get the other person drunk. But when we see it and then we take it to, we're high schoolers and we're saying you're disrespecting me, it's like, really? Are you really disrespecting me? Like, I don't even know you like that. These OGs are coming from the fact that, like, dude, I'm your uncle this, I'm your in-law this, I did this for your family this, you're taking my daughter. They're using that, and here we are as high schoolers thinking it's okay for us to be like, hey, you're disrespecting me by not taking this drink. Oh, dude, I don't even know you. And how many times we go to parties and you have random Hmong dudes, hey, man, quit being bitchy. Why are you being this? It's like, dude, I don't know you. I'm not going to take that drink, Granted, you could say whatever you want. Like, and that's the thing, too. So, and then not the second thing, but a part of that, too, is being, especially right now, being, like, responsible when it comes to drinking. I think now we also have to be, if you're the enforcer, if you're the guy who's saying, hey, come drink with me, I think part of you also has to hold someone accountable of being like, all right, you're making that guy drink, then you have to be somewhat accountable for that guy. If you're the one forcing him to drink a lot, you better be responsible for them. If he's thrown up in someone's bathroom, that's part of your responsibility. You got to be cleaning up after him. You got to be mopping the floor, because why? You're the one forcing him to drink. Granted, I get it. There's the other.
I've seen death.
And that's the thing, right?
From this.
That's even worse. You
explain that then.
Explain death? I mean,
yeah,
that
death, dude.
That to me, if you're forcing someone to drink to where they die, then number one, you're just,
or a car accident, right? Because they're drunk.
If you're all I gotta say to that is this: if you're gonna make someone drink, you gotta be able to bear the responsibilities of what comes with it. And that to me is bottom line. Like, if I'm giving a drink to any one of my friends, it's, look, you good? Can you take it or not? And if you're taking it, then I'm making sure too that I can take care of you. Like that's the thing. If you're a person right now who's not thinking of that, I would say you should, and definitely point. And if you are seeing someone who's taking it, and you see that they're struggling, you see that they're barely able to walk, and you're still that guy who's like, nah, take it. I think you should start asking yourself questions like, why are you forcing this guy to drink? Like, what's in it for you? And are you really valuing this guy? And if you're guilting him of like, yo, you're disrespecting me, what is it? And I think those are maybe for the younger guys who are, you're coming out and you're putting that behavior. I think you really need to start looking at your actions and more being more responsible. But that's my take on it. I think eventually a lot of Hmong males, they go through that phase where they mature, or maybe not mature, but they've seen a friend who died, or they've seen a friend who gets in a car crash, or they see a friend who just gets a DUI, and it completely changes their lives. And then now, instead of being the enforcer, being that one guy, they're more like us. Or two and I, maybe two can relate, but I can relate too, where I'm just like, hey, if he's not good, just leave him alone, but to go back and say, well, how can we prevent it? Why does it keep happening? Why do we have? I know high school Hmong males right now who are doing that, heavily drinking and forcing people, and it starts with our culture, but I think also being I don't want to say elders because I'm not really that old, but I think we also have a responsibility ourselves too, that when we see those high school students, we intervene too and say, hey, like, it's cool and all, you're practicing, culture, but I think a part of it is that we also have to at some point be responsible ourselves and say, hey, not to be your parent or your mom, but make sure you guys drink responsibly and know what you're doing and not get into that. So
you make it sound like drinking culture and culture is the same thing.
Well, I think the thing is, drinking culture, I think when you look at Wisconsin has a drinking culture. I feel like that's not different, but that's something that, I guess, a reputation or something that people do just for a sake of a rep or
I
stigma.
feel like
but go ahead, Colin.
I was gonna say, I feel like it is becoming a gray area where ideally you would say, like, yes, like, there's drinking culture and that's like by itself, and then there's the Hmong culture. But when you talk about Hmong culture, for example, weddings, what do you do there mostly? Drinking. So it is definitely intertwined with the tradition, and Mikey here touched up on a lot of great stuff, and one of the things I wanted to mention to reiterate what he kind of said was where I believe it back in our parents and our grandparents' time, it started off as a social communal thing, and as slowly changed or have been modified to I just lost my train of thought. It was almost in a sense of like control. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but people trying to establish that masculine feature or what it means to be a man. Like, that's where I see where it has gone to that level where it's like, hey, if you don't drink this much amount or drink this whole thing, you're not a man in my eyes, and I'm gonna forget about you. So that's what I'm saying. It's like almost like a sense of control over people, trying to emasculate men who don't want to drink. And oftentimes, what happens to those guys who refuse to drink? Oh, quit being a bitch. You're weak. I'll admit, when I was younger, I definitely did that too. But you know what? Could be an age thing, but you know, now that I'm older, I'm looking at it, it's like, why did I say that? You know?
You reflect back on yourself and
Of course.
think, wait, why did I say that, right?
Yeah.
Because you're on the other side now. Like, wait a minute, that was me a couple years back.
Exactly. You know, you're thinking about it like, this guy is refusing a drink, and for me to think that that's a weak thing, it's like, huh? It's, you know, it's just a drink. It's either you take it or not, and it's okay, just move on. You know, but people put so much emphasis on this drink, this alcoholic drink, like, this is what makes you a man if you drink it.
I just want to go back to. Sorry, I just want to go back to that point where I think it's hard to say like that drinking culture and that monk culture is like, or what you were saying. I don't know. I'm not sure what you were saying before is the same thing, but I think it's there's not really a definitive answer for me, but it's when you come from a culture who has drinking integrated in so much of its practice that it almost becomes like culture. Where then some people say, "Whoa, it's you guys have a drinking culture,"
Yeah.
and I think that's something that, you know, again, I don't have an answer for myself, but when people say you guys have a drinking culture, it's like, oh man, well, I can't really argue that because drinking is it's the thing implemented in so many of our cultures. Like, we drink at weddings, we drink to thank the shaman, we drink to thank we drink to thank the women, everybody, like, and to go back to your point, I feel like it's hard. Like, could I say it's a drinking culture? Yeah, but at the same time, because of that historical, like, you know, construct, I feel like that kind of I don't know, it makes it difficult for us, at least in our generation. But I'm actually curious, going to that, to hear another of our guests here perspective, over on my right here, about how he feels about what he feels about what are your thoughts on, like, you're older than me, like, what are your thoughts when you see a younger folk?
Not too much older,
but you see the Hmong generation now and their drinking habits in our culture, and how we're still and yet changing. Some are changing drinking too, but we still have drinking in some of our practices. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think we're talking a lot about drinking culture and Hmong culture and how it's one and the same. I think drinking culture is fairly universal. I think substance culture is pretty universal, and how it connects to like how we talked about culture of a people in general. I think about the U.S. drinking culture, right? U.S. totally has a drinking culture. We don't want to just frame Hmong people as having this particular drinking culture, substance culture with alcohol. The U.S. totally does, you know. Happy hour, right? That's a national thing in America. You go to work, you work all day, you get stressed out, you drink with your work buddies, and you build relationships afterwards, right? So that's a drinking culture right there. Open bar, right? That's a very common conversation in all weddings in American culture, right? And you ask, like, is it got to be an open bar or not, right? That's a very common thing in American culture. So drinking culture and substance culture, and we can even talk about marijuana too, right? A lot of folks smoke marijuana in America now. Substance culture in America is very common too. And I think about Native Americans with tobacco culture. I think about Rastafarians with marijuana culture, right? I'm not going to delve into things I don't know, but this is what I am familiar with. I think substance cultures across a lot of cultures is a very ubiquitous thing, right? So I don't want to problematize Hmong folks and their connection to alcohol. I think there are problems, but I don't want to problematize Hmong folks and their connection to alcohol, because this is a universal human experience. I'm going to pull it all the way back to some of the things we touched on We touched on masculinity. I think that our common Hmong and American, and thus Hmong American understandings around masculinity and how we're supposed to perform masculinity, I think there's this culture. One of my colleagues here has talked about peer pressuring, pushing others to drink. I want to pull this into patriarchy and domination, into asserting masculinity, right? The tough guy is tough because he can show others he's tough. Is that he's more of a badass? Is that he can maybe be more violent, or even that he can disrespect someone more than the other person can, right? And that's what a masculine person is. He asserts his masculinity. He asserts his identity. He asserts his domination and power over others, other men and non-men, women and queer folks and trans folks, by being able to perform this violent action, whether that's physically, emotionally, or verbally, right? Where he can then be like, yo, blah, 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 I'm going to say something rude as hell to you. I'm going to call you something really sexist, really homophobic. You can use whatever word you want to think about right now, any of those slurs, any of those swear words. I'm going to use those words, and I'm going to make you feel bad because you're not being a man enough. You're going to be you're a B word. You're too womanly. Right. You're F word. You're a man who likes other men. Mm-hmm. I'm going to disrespect you because I'm going to assert my dominance over you, and if you don't say nothing back, that means I am dominant over you. Exactly. Right? And this is a relationship that men form with one another. Mm-hmm. So, and this is how drinking culture operates in Hmong culture, and to be perfectly honest, in a lot of other cultures, in a lot of other patriarchal cultures, where men are held to be the one in power, and men are held to be the one who are supposed to dominate others with verbal or physical violence. Mm-hmm. In this case, we're talking about drinking culture, right? So we were being verbal about being the tough guy and making the other person feel bad about it. Right. I think that's the masculinity piece. I also think about Hmong culture in terms of trauma culture, in terms of that we've also adhered to trauma, adhere to alcohol and substances because we want to attempt to keep our culture alive, and we've hyper-emphasized alcohol in our culture because we've been so destroyed by war and displacement and being refugees. And that one of the pieces that we've always have, and I believe this because, like I said earlier, cultures have always had some substance cultures, and that's been part of the way they've connected to each other. But I think we hyper-emphasized it and we perverted it and we turned it into something toxic. Is that we used to, we probably used to have our marriages and we would drink, and we'd probably not drink as much as we do now. But when it came to when we would form very important relationships with one another, where we walk, several miles to then build a relationship within a clan, we'd also be like, this is really important. Let's have some drinks over this. This is important, right? We don't have alcohol all the time, but we're going to do this while we have this marriage, and we're going to form an alliance here, right? And we're going to have these drinks, and we're going to get real with one another, right? And that became a culture, for better or worse. But I think that when we were then in war, it exacerbated everything. And as we attempted to keep this culture of Hmongness, we also saw that alcohol was something important. And I would also then say this is exacerbated by American culture in how we have to be masculine, hyper-masculine, masculine enough to compete with the white man. And this is a racist thing as well, that Asian men are not as masculine as the white man, right? Mm-hmm. This is a patriarchal thing, that we didn't have enough power, that we had to access all this domination and power that the white man does. And that sadly, we do then inflict on our own communities by trying to dominate our own other men, like what you mentioned earlier about, being a bigger drinker, and also our women and our queer folks and trans folks, our children, where we try to dominate them too. So we try to hold on to this piece, this chunk of our culture, which also fits in American culture. So this is one of the pieces where I think it exacerbates our drinking culture, because we see it as like, oh, I can both be seen as something important in my culture, Hmong culture, patriarchy and dominating other men and women and all the folks, and also I can show to the white people in American culture, because they also see drinking as important. I can also be a big drinker here. So this is a confluence. This is a connection between the two cultures, that I can be a badass right here. All right, I drink a lot, and the white people will respect me. The Hmong people will respect me. This is how I, as a man, am supposed to be, because men are supposed to be powerful, and men who are powerful are tough, and men who are powerful and tough can drink a lot.
I couldn't help but think when you were just talking about that. Sorry, I'm interjecting, but I couldn't help but think. I hear people, or some people, already thinking like, "But that's not me." That's not me. Like, that's not what my intentions are. We're just trying to have fun. We're just trying to get to know each other, trying to socialize. Maybe even to the extent of like, hey, it's trying to. Alcohol's good. It loosens people up. Gets them social. I could definitely hear people saying that, where it goes back to, it's almost like they're not being responsible in seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally relate to that. I mean, I also drink as well. But I think about, and we mentioned this earlier, my friend to the left, right, or to the right here, he was saying that until folks are drinking a lot, until they realize they abused it too much, and folks are then getting DUIs, are then getting into crashes, are then hurting other people with their irresponsible actions and their intoxication, getting into fights, shooting up house parties, just like in Fresno, shooting up venue parties, just like in Minneapolis, right? So people can say it's all fun that they want, but this has a very direct connection to the violence that we all then, and I would actually then argue, those same people say, oh man, why do Hmong people gotta be this way? They always Hmong lu Hmong, right? They're always fighting and hurting each other. Like, this is why bitch you Hmong they kill, right? It's because they are also contributing to that same culture of violence, where they are silent about how it actually is very connected to the things that form the violent actions that happen in our communities. So, and that comes from a place of privilege, to be perfectly honest. Because for someone to say, oh, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect us, it's because no one's holding you accountable. If your homie called you out for drinking too much and then saying some terrible shit, or even then becoming kind of violent and abusive to the partner who is also in that room too, and the homie doesn't say anything, or even saying, bro, that dude across the room, you want to jump him later? He did this and that, and then that homie saying, like, not saying anything, or even at the same time being like, you know what, let's do it, let's do that, and then also having weapons at the same time, right? This is all the same. It's in the culture of violence, and I want to pull it back here. It's not that Hmong people are violent, right? It's that Hmong people have dealt with a lot of violence, and this is what we have been faced with. And if it happens to be what they've learned to deal with the problems in their community, the things that have happened in their community, and they learned that those are the responses you make to the things that happen in your community, and it's violent, Sadly, that's what it is. But what I'm saying is that we have to transcend that. We have to think deeper about this and not just be like, yo, I'm just having fun. You know, my homie's just talking about this. He's just drunk right now. He's just saying that to his wife, but he's not really like that. He's actually really good to his wife. You know, he doesn't say like that stuff to his sister. You know, he's not checking his homie, his boy, because his boy is just like that too. You know, oh man, you know, he has a gang history, but he's not like that anymore. He doesn't really fight people, whatever. Oh, he fought with that one guy. Well, that guy did that thing to him. That's why he stepped up to him. No, it's because we never said, yo, all of this is a contribution to this culture of patriarchy and domination and violence. And we're not stepping up to address it. That's the issue. And yes, I will say that's hard.
It is.
But I will challenge folks to be courageous, be leaders in their community, to think of something better and actually act upon it, because it is not urgent to them. They're so privileged. They can be like, yo, oh man, that's messed up, but I'm going to go home and I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But then he's going to go home and beat his wife. And he's like, you know, that's just my cousin. He's just like that. I mean, I don't know what to do. But he's not the one getting beaten.
Yeah.
Right? And then no one talks about the woman getting beaten. No one says, hey, a person who got beaten, who's a woman or a queer person or a trans person, what's up? How can we help you? No one does that. And this is how we need men. So if we're going to talk about men and drinking culture, this is all connected to patriarchy, domination, and the privilege to not have to challenge anything. We need to ask them to actually step up and do something and challenge their most closest friends. Start having conversations about it. Find other men who are willing to have conversations about it.
Well, that was a lot to take in, and I hope our listeners, for those who are an alcoholic or non-alcoholic or just a social drinker, to take responsibility and look at yourself. And again, just reflecting on myself when I was a lot younger, you know, I've never enforced any drink upon anybody. However, growing up, I've been enforced to drink that I don't even want to drink. I always thought of that like, why are they doing this? And I don't want to drink. But again, it relates back to about being, you know, the macho man here, trying to make you drink. And, you know, this person it's just, I don't know how to even help the community when you have that kind of individuals that you just don't see that. And I think the only time they do see it is when that person actually have a death, literally, when it's really just like, oh my god, I hopefully hits them there where they have way too much drink and it causes a DUI and a death. And that's probably when it's like too late. It's too late by then, you know, there's a death already. And I hope the community could see and turn this around and drink responsibly and respect one another on that aspect.